everyone, welcome to Homespun, where creativity and community come together. I am your host, Misty Doan, and I am so excited to be talking with the incomparable Jenny Doan today. You are going to love everything she has to share, as always. Jenny, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I know everyone will love to hear some of your story.
I'm excited to be here. Well, I love this format. It's really fun.
It is fun. It's fun to chat. And so I thought maybe we could start. It's Birthday Bash week, and I thought maybe we could talk just about some of our favorite stories through the years and about, growing Missouri Star, because I think it's a pretty unique story and one that you have shared in your book and things like that. But maybe let's start with when the company first started and Al and Sarah came to you saying, we're going to buy this quilt machine. Did you ever imagine that it would grow to what it is?
Not for one tiny moment. I just thought it would really keep me out of their basement, and I would have an income. Yeah. And so we'd be able to do it, because that was at a time when the market crashed and Ron was still working at nights at the newspaper, and I mean, it was just a rough time, and I just figured it would give me a little bit of an income. That was all we were really hoping for. Yeah. Enough for me to build a little nest egg and enough to pay the payment on the machine. Yeah. So that's how it all began.
Exactly, and then that machine came, and it was too big for the house.
We literally did not have a room for it, and so then we put it in we had to buy a building. Yeah. And the buildings were so cheap then, because every building was shuttered just about.
Pretty much. I was going to say there was really no thriving economy in Hamilton at the time. And so that was kind of a blessing and a curse, because there was cheap real estate to get a building for sure.
But for sure, everybody thought this is going to fail. This is never going to work. You know, it's not going to go anywhere. It's never going to work. But the gift was online. Nobody had gone online yet. Right. YouTube wasn't a thing yet. It was maybe almost 1 year old. Right. When we decided to do tutorials online, that changed everything.
It really did. Yeah. Do you remember that first video?
I do remember the first video very vividly.
You want to talk about it?
Well, I broke my leg in the middle of it, I was being silly and goofy, and I swung my leg out behind me, because Alan was like, no, Mom, be more expressive, and so I'm like, fine, I can be expressive, and I swung my leg out, and it caught in the cords, and I went down and landed on my leg, and, I said to Alan, I said, I think I hurt myself, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do, call 911? And I'm like, yes, I think you better call 911. And he's like, Mom, we don't want an ambulance to come to the quilt shop. So somehow whoever was there got me into the car,
loaded you up,
and it was broken for sure.
I know.
And so it was a rough first video, because that part of it for me wasn't even really the rough part. I got, we got my leg taken care of, and it was too swollen to cast. Right. So they just could boot it, I couldn't really use the crutches, so I had to crawl everywhere.
It's the worst.
So I, because I'm too big to carry, especially then. But it's, I crawled out the car and up the porch and into the entryway and up the stairs and to my bed, and Ron helped me get up in bed, that one leg, shaking to hold everything. And you get in bed and he gets me all, fluffed up and some pain medication in me. And I mean, within a few hours, Alan was back begging for me to come and film. And I'm like, no, it's not a thing. We're not doing it. You can come back in another 6 weeks. Because you remember, he would just show up every 6 weeks. Yep. He'd be out doing his work. And then he'd come home and be like, I have this idea for the quilt shop. You know?
Because at the time he was still working for another company.
Yeah. So then the whole thing just, he decided that I should do videos. Yeah. And so then he came, and literally I had to crawl back down the hall outside. They got this little wheelchair for me to sit in, and it was my grandma's, and she's probably this tall,
tiny
and
little
this
woman,
tiny, and I was not. I was much taller and not that tiny. And the metal on the sides. I mean, this is an old wheelchair, so no plastic here. The metal on the sides bowed out and hit the wheels.
Oh my
gosh.
As
they pushed the wheelchair, the friction of the wheels on the metal, like almost lit me on fire. I'm like, wow! My hips were burning. I didn't know what was happening, but something very painful was happening to me.
Oh no!
But we got there, and that first tutorial, literally, I laugh so hard at it now, because there are crutches behind me. I'm sitting in a wheelchair. But mostly I'm on a lot of pain medication.
Yes, heavily medicated.
And I could not get my words to be right, and come out right and to enunciate. And I was trying so hard. And I remember that I was trying to talk about a wonderful pattern that Pam and Nikki Lintott made.
Okay.
And I couldn't say, leta, to save my life, And everybody there, my children think it's hilarious, And of course, I'm trying so hard and I can't figure out how to get those words out. And I mean, the tutorials are way better now. Let's just say we have improved greatly from that time.
We've come a bit. Yeah, come a little ways.
I don't think that's on YouTube anymore.
Probably not.
Yeah,
probably not.
I think it's been pulled down, but it was on there for a long time.
It was for a long time. And there are still a few where you were still obviously in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And you can see the crutches kind of
Well,
propped
yeah,
up
because
behind
we would film, even like we do now, we would try to film a couple different ideas.
Yep.
And we didn't have an every Friday thing or anything like that. We just put them out as we got them finished and edited and ready to go, And of course, we did all that ourselves.
I know. It's been
a whole different time.
It really is. It's been such a wild ride to think back. And in some ways it feels like just yesterday.
Yeah.
But now somehow it's 16 years later, which is incredible.
It is incredible.
Was there a moment for you where you're like, this might work?
I think that moment had to do with us and the mail. So we would walk our little packages that we were mailing down to the mail people, and pretty soon we had to get a box from them to hold them in. We got these bins, and we'd walk the bins down, and then we'd get a bag, and then we'd drive the bag down.
I remember.
And then one day we got 100 orders, and I remember Morgan, who worked for us, she laid down in the middle of them, and we took a picture because it was so astounding that we had 100 orders. And then the post office started coming to us and picking up. And so I was like, oh my gosh,
Something's working.
Something is really happening here, Also, the other thing was I got a call from someone in Brazil who was watching the tutorials. And they're like, we want to come and see you. And I'm like, we're this tiny little shop. All we have is 3 bolts of fabric and a quilt machine.
2 little shelves.
She's like, I want to quilt my quilt with you, And she came.
Wow.
And I was just stunned that somebody, from a whole other country would think what we were doing was amazing enough to come and see us. That was really an eye-opener.
It's incredible. And it's one of those things that even now, for me, the connection that can be built online is really incredible.
It stuns me.
Yeah.
I just don't know how we are able to feel emotion through a computer screen.
Yeah.
And whether that emotion is you can do it, or I get what you're going through, I don't know how it happens, but it does. And it happens every day, many times a day.
Yeah.
And for the people who are on the receiving end, first of all, I'm so grateful to them,
Absolutely.
And secondly, it still amazes me that what I'm doing matters that much, because in my head for a long time I was just sewing.
Right.
And and really what that tells me is that whatever you bring to the table, it's enough. If you're just willing to share your knowledge, it really is enough, and it will help somebody. And if it just helps one, how great is that?
Oh, exactly. And one of the things you've been sharing this year in our Doan Girls Retreats, you've kept in your journal some of the things that you've learned. And I know one of them is that you need to share your knowledge with your family, especially, because it can die with you if you don't share it. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think it's really important when we're given a skill, or we accomplish a skill, or learn a skill, and especially a skill that brings you peace or joy. When Natalie gets working in stained glass, I mean, her whole self changes.
Yeah, she loves it so much.
She loves it so much. It really is her deal. When I am sewing, that's my thing.
Yeah.
I sew when I'm happy, mad, angry, anxious, whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's my go-to
for
it's healing to me.
Yeah.
And so when we have experienced those things, how sweet it is to share with somebody else so that they too can feel that peace.
Yeah.
It's not about the sewing. It's about the peace. It's about the being able to do something that's hard.
Yeah.
It's about all those things. And when you just keep that for yourself, and I think a lot of people don't ever do it intentionally. They don't think what they do was going to matter to somebody else. But if you could just share that with somebody else. And I've seen it happen in lots of different ways. I mean, Ron put a call out to all the grandkids and said, who wants to learn to make eclairs?
Exactly.
Because he's really good at that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have all these sweet pictures of grandkids who came over to do that. And he taught them a skill.
Yeah. And it's so special to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think when we, you know, if in our life we don't do that, that possibility of joy, it ends with us.
Yeah.
But if we put our arm around anyone, you know, your friend who says, you're getting really good, you should make me a quilt, and you put your arm around her and say, let me show you how to do this, because it's going to change your life.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't matter what the creative process is, it matters that we share it.
Oh, absolutely. It makes me think of, you shared that at retreat, and then one of our retreaters came back to town, and I happened to run into her, and she shared with me how she didn't have any grandchildren, but she had these sweet little neighbor girls.
Oh, I
and
love
so
that.
they have been sewing with her for I think over a year now.
Wow.
And they come over and they love it so much, and she's like, you were right, it matters. It
does matter.
It's so important. And so I think it's a great lesson to all of us to make time to share what we love,
Really?
you know, and it's the joy that, just like you said, that joy that it brings us.
It's gonna come back. You know, my mom used to say, when you cast your bread upon the water,
Yeah.
comes back buttered.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. You know, you show somebody a skill and do it the best you can, but be happy for him who can do it better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I teach, like for instance, with my 3 girls, you know, Sarah hopes never to sew again. She can sew.
She's a fabulous quilter, but she doesn't do it often, does she?
She doesn't love it. No.
Yeah.
Natalie sews pretty much like I do, but it's probably not her first love. Hillary, on the other hand, took the little bit of information I gave her, and she became a gown maker and a phenomenal quilter. And the way her brain works is completely different. And I'm so, you know, happy for her and proud of that, you know. And so, you know, they are not going to be just like you when they learn the skill. They're going to be like them.
Yeah.
And like the them that is important to be.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, and I think it's a good reminder to all of us that our version, whatever you know, makes us happy, makes our heart sing in that way, we need to listen to that and make time for it.
And make time for it.
Yeah.
I think that's the big deal. For me, when my children were small, I loved to sew, and all of a sudden, you know, my time, I didn't have the time. And if I got up really early to have a few minutes of sewing, my children got up really early.
Yeah.
You know, they were always so worried they were going to miss something fun, you know, and probably they would.
Well, I was going to say, that's what you get for being so much fun.
But still, it was one of those things where you just have to, you know, be, you know, aware of where it's going.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. I think that's so true. Well, is there any other of those messages that, you know, you put in your journal that are sticking out in your mind that maybe you want to share with people?
So I thought that maybe I could write 16 of them, you know, one for every year. And I think I'm at about 30.
I think so, yeah.
And there are just so many things that we learn from being a part of a community.
Yeah.
You know, when people come to retreats, they often come alone, but by the end of that time, they have 90 new friends,
Yes.
you know, or 40 new friends, or 11 new friends, you
Whatever
know,
it
depending
is.
upon
Yeah.
the size of the retreat that they go to. That's their tribe. Those are their people. And when they have a question, those people are going to help them. And when they have a need, those people are going to help them. And so for me, I love the camaraderie of the quilting circle. You know, it used to be there was the quilting bee, you know, we had the little circle. Well, that circle has broadened. And I remember in the beginning when Alan and Dave started the online forum, well, for the first time in the history of quilting, there was thousands of people on a forum that could answer and help with any question. And it was the biggest bee.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody even really thought about that at the time.
No.
But those women are still friends,
Yeah.
and men, women and men, and they still get together every year, a smattering of them, you know, to have at Birthday Bash for a retreat, you know, and it's so wonderful to have watched over the years. They've lost some of them now. You know, and they mourn together and they celebrate together.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sweet to see those relationships happen. And I think oftentimes, because of social media and things like that, we kind of hole up in our houses and think we know everything that's going on. But there's something completely different that happens when somebody touches you.
Yeah.
You know, when you hug someone, when you look them into the eye, you know, and
spend real time
and
together.
spend real time together.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's really sweet.
That's interesting that you bring up the forum, because when we first started, you know, I had little babies at home, and that was the first thing I did for the company, was help moderate the forum, and we would do giveaways on there, and it was really fun to see that early camaraderie and people being so excited to have someone listen to them and answer their questions.
Yeah, what do you guys think about this?
Yeah.
You know, it just happens all the time. Are you just ever amazed at all the different things you've done in the company?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like when you think about, you know, a job description, you're like, well, I did that. I did that. I know Natalie can do the same thing. She's like, well, I did all the customer service for a while.
Yeah.
Well, I was the, you know, I was the kit maker. I was the, you know, whatever.
I know, it's pretty wild. It really is.
It is really wild.
But I feel so grateful for it too. And I mean, I know you feel the same way. I mean, what an incredible journey it's been, and so much learning.
So much learning.
And I just feel like that is truly such a privilege. And in that vein, you talk a lot about how quilting is a learned skill. And so I thought maybe you could share when you first learned to quilt, what that looked like.
Well, it's definitely a journey, and I think the journey story is really important for every one of us to look back at that first quilt. So I had a granddaughter over to my house this last week, and I was going through quilts, and I pulled this one out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was one, you know, because I used to hand quilt because I didn't have money to get it machine quilted. And so I made this, and it's a block from like 12 different states, their state block, and I put it together, and you know, it has a big fade mark right in the middle of it because I left it sitting in front of the window so long, and you know, and she kind of looked at me and she goes, well, what do you want to do with this? And I said, you know what, this is a beginning for me, so this I honor, because that's where we started. And a lot of us are like, oh, don't look closely at that, you know, and it's like, you know, look closely and enjoy where I was. So the journey for me is really important, because I think for all of us, our journeys are going to be varied and different, but they are going to be, when we look back at them, they're going to be some of the sweetest times of our lives, because as we go along, you really do get better and better. And I distinctly remember the time that I learned how to square blocks, because it wasn't for years.
Right? That's so true.
And I didn't care.
Yeah, because you knew how to make it work.
Well, yeah, I was happy with where I was, and I knew how to make it work. And then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, a tool came out that worked for my brain, because tools are brain focused. And when that came out and it worked for my brain, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can square a block. I felt like a superhero, you know. And so then that changed all of my quilting, because all of a sudden, you know, I could square. And I was reading a post the other day, and one of the comments was, all this squaring, how do you just not do it, you know? And there's like 380 answers, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go peruse some of these answers, and you know, some of them were, be happy where you are, just don't worry about it. And some of them, you know, were, you know, well, once you learn how to do it, you know, it'll make your life easier. And I love on those quilt, what is it called, forums, you know, on Facebook or whatever, you know, that I would say 99% of the time, the people are just so helpful. Yes. And they just want to help you be better and enjoy your craft more. Yeah. And I think that, I think for me, I had 6 ladies that I went and spent time with in Chillicothe, and that was my Facebook. You know, we didn't have it then. And I would say to them, you know, well, I want to make this, you know, and they'd say, okay, and they'd help me through it. And one of the ladies, I started making half square triangles where you put 2 squares together and sew around it. And she goes, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, what? Why? They look the same. Yeah. You know, and I could see the gears changing in her head, and she was just like, well, I guess they can. And she says, well, they're on the bias. And I'm like, well, yeah, but clothing sewers love the bias. Exactly. Can't we just, is the bias a bad thing? You know, I didn't know the rules. Right. And I'm glad I didn't, because that really is my magic, you know, those shortcuts. And, you know, when I started doing that, it was like, oh, you know, this is awesome, you know. And so that journey, I think, is important to remember, and we're still on it, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know, so you and I, we just went to England, and we saw amazing quilts. Incredible. And every time I see them, I think to myself, oh, I could never do that. Yeah. And yet it's really just sewing straight. Maybe it's only this far of a line, you know, and lots of little lines. You know, anything is doable. Yeah. But you have to, it's really if you want to, if you're ready for it, if that's where you are in your journey, anything you take on, you can do. Don't be afraid to take something on. But I love quilts that are quick and easy.
Yeah.
That's my love.
Yeah.
And so, while I have done some ones that take a little more work and you have to pay attention, and some of the squares are teeny tiny, I gravitate toward quick and easy.
Yeah.
So it's just a different journey for everyone, and
I love that.
something to be loved and enjoyed and really considered.
Yeah, definitely. Is there one that you've made that you're still like, I just can't believe I did that?
So when I broke my leg and was in bed,
Yes.
I had a friend who I tried to get Ron to figure out how to get a sewing machine in my bed. I could
Yes.
not. We could not figure it out. Plus, I didn't have a good foot to push the pedal.
Yeah.
And we thought about putting it under my arm. I mean, we really
Tried all the
we really
things.
tried all the things.
Yeah.
But I had to do something, and people brought me all the books and wonderful, lots of stuff to do. I had wonderful quilting friends who filled my life up, tried to fill my time up with things that would work for me. And so one friend said, "I'm going to teach you how to needle turn applique," and I'm like, I don't want to. I don't have no desire to do it. I'm not that fussy. I take big stitches, And she's like, "Well, I'm just going to bring you some fabric in the morning. I want you to do this, and then at night I'll come and look at it." And so I thought, well, it'll get me 2 visits a day.
Yeah.
And so she'd come in the morning and bring me this stuff, and then she'd come at night. She'd say, "Well, this really isn't very good," and she'd take it apart.
Oh no.
And she'd say, "You'll thank me someday." Well, I decided that I was going to take on a Jan Paddock quilt after I was better.
Yeah.
We did all these little things when I was in bed, but after I was better, I decided I was going to take on a Jan Paddock needle turn applique quilt, and really the whole thing, except for the background squares, are sewn together on the machine. All the rest of it are needle turn applique. And I literally look at that still. I mean, that was before the quilt shop.
I was going to say that was
or maybe right at the very beginning.
Yeah,
because we had her come and teach a class.
Exactly.
And so I literally, whenever I see that quilt, I still look at it and go, I can't believe I did that.
I love that.
And I have done some needle turn applique on some other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not my love because it's really fussy for me.
For you, yeah.
But some people love it, live and die by it, breathe it every day. She does some every day. She loves the hand sewing.
Yeah.
I love the pedal to the metal.
Right. We
so,
all have our thing.
So a little bit different.
Yeah.
But, I still look at that quilt and I think, I just can't, I'm so proud of myself that I did it. Is it perfect? No.
Yeah.
Is it amazing? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so cool.
It's very fun.
Well, you have some big changes coming up.
I do.
Oh, that's so exciting. And I'm just so excited for you and Ron. And it's going to be quite the adventure and a little terrifying for us as you head out.
And for me.
And for you, I know. But man, I'm so proud of you for taking this leap and for, listening to your heart and knowing that it's important for you guys and being willing to lead by example and step away from this incredible legacy that you've built here at Missouri Star. And we will do our best to keep things chugging along.
Missy, there has never been a time that you haven't done your best.
Oh, you're the sweetest. Don't make me cry. Don't do that.
You have done your best. Natalie does her best. I mean, everybody does the best they can every day.
Yeah.
I mean, we never get up and say, today I'm going to be terrible
Today
at this.
I'm just going to do a bad job.
You don't do it. Everybody does their best. And
it's so
you
true.
really do your best. But it is a leap of faith for me.
Yeah.
It's something Ron and I have always wanted to do.
Yeah.
We've always wanted to give back in a big way or in any way.
In any
I
way.
actually didn't care where I went or what I did. I wanted to give back in a way. And when he turned 70, it was such a wake-up call because how did we ever get this old? Well, I'm not that old for sure, but
No.
how did we ever get this old?
How are you married to such an old guy?
How am I married to such an old guy? We're still healthy.
Yeah.
We're still great, and we can do something. And I had been praying a lot about, because I'm a woman who prays, but I've been praying a lot about, how to do a little less so that I could do his retirement a little more, honor him a little more. Because every day I go do my work, and I'm happy to do my work, and he finds things to keep him busy at home.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do some things that honored his whole lifetime spent, taking care of us and our family. And so so that's the answer that came to me was that, to do something humanitarian. And I thought, what a grand idea. And, the thought that came is that if I'm out there and I, you know, I try to take everybody with me, you know, on this and let them know what I'm doing and how it's going, that the world would rally around you girls, and that the, you know, the quilters that are out there would will love you and hold you up and take care of you while I'm gone. The idea of leaving my family and my grandchildren, because I work with a lot of them every single day of my life,
so much,
is going to be a tough call for me. But I think it's going to be good for everybody. Basically, I have to trust that there's a plan that's bigger than I am.
Yeah.
And that you know, and that things are going to work and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you know, and the other thing is that I have to keep remembering is that I am not dying. I will only miss one birthday bash.
That's amazing.
Because I will be home. I will not be here next year, but I will be here and I get home in August.
Yeah.
And I do think when I get home, my hope is that because I'm never going to stop creating. I'm not going to stop in Africa. I mean, it's part of who I am.
Exactly.
But what my hope is that I will be able to create in a different way without so many deadlines. You know, the power of the deadline, which some people thrive on.
Yeah.
And I don't really thrive. I mean, I'm not a procrastinator, so my stuff is always done early. But I love the idea of just being free to create a series of something that then releases.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that Jake's been trying to get me to do for a long time, but I'm so tied to the deadline. And so removing this little space and the way we do things, I think for me is going to be a gift.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really excited to see how it changes my creative process.
Yeah, I am too. And I think it's exciting, and I think it's a good reminder to everyone that you will be back.
I will be back.
You will be back, and you will have more to share, and you'll still be sharing while you're gone.
Oh, 100%.
Which is, you know, I think a lot of people are like, but wait, what's happening? And so don't worry.
Well, and it may be like, this is what my apartment looks like.
Sure,
you know? Like I got a picture from a lady today, and she goes, this is what a mosquito netting over a bed looks like. And I was like, oh, that's not terrible. You know, in my mind, it's like you think about the old movies from the jungle in the 30s, you know, and it's like, oh, this is going to be awful, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not, you know. And so it's, I think it'll be, I think it's going to be quite an adventure, to be honest.
It will be.
I am a little nervous about it, only because I'm a planner, and I like to, you know, I like to know just what's going to happen.
Well, and you've had quite a routine for a while.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I'm doing every single day of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to have, you know, that kind of open question a little bit as you know, take this next step is pretty
well, and
crazy.
A question about every single area of our life. It's like from how do we do our laundry to, you know, how do we drive the car? You know, I mean, it's like every area, nothing feels like, oh, we got this.
Yeah.
You know?
It's all brand new again.
It's all brand new.
Which is honestly a lot of fun. I mean, I guess it goes back to what you were saying earlier, where it's like, it's all a learned skill. We're never too old to keep learning.
Right.
And you know, what a cool opportunity to have like the adventure of a lifetime and to give back while you're there.
Yeah, I know somebody gave me a quote that I love, and it said, you will change them almost as much as they will change you.
Yeah.
And their joy is unsurpassed. They have joy with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, we have joy, you know, surrounded by things, you know, but they have joy with nothing.
I mean, we had the opportunity to go to Africa, and we experienced that.
We really
did
experience that. That pure.
Just the best people.
Just the best.
It was so wonderful.
I'm so excited about it.
I'm so excited too.
And I'm not dying, so I'll be
no,
back.
That's exactly right.
I will be back
and
in 2 years.
Cannot wait. I cannot wait to see, you know, how it rejuvenates you and inspires you in new ways, and you'll just come back, I hope, filled up to the top, ready to share.
Me too.
It's so amazing. Well, is there any final words you would like to leave with everyone before we wrap it up?
Well, I just hope everybody, you know, I don't know. I don't know final words. Oh, that sounds
that
so
feels
final.
big. Well, it doesn't have. I mean,
feels big.
For a minute, just, you know, just to wrap up today. Just a message that feels important or is on your heart.
I would say take time for yourself. Keep creating. I mean, so many times, like especially when we're living in the trenches, which is what I called when I had children. I was living in the trenches. We don't take time for ourselves, but it's the oxygen mask thing. It's like if you take care of yourself first, then you can take care of those around us. Because even for us, as we get older, we are still the caretakers. We're still caretaking for someone.
Yeah.
And I think about the women who come to retreats and they're all carrying something heavy. Yeah. It's something everyone you ask, it doesn't matter who it is, would say, this is what I'm dealing with. And the things that they're dealing with, as they share them with me, feels overwhelming to me, and I don't even have to live them.
Yeah.
But they come to retreat. They take a little time for themselves. They fill their bucket or their little cup.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, but they go filled up just enough to go back and keep fighting. And it's our creativity that does that for us. And it doesn't matter what you create in, but if you can create in a way that fills your bucket a little bit, you can keep taking care of and doing all the things that you need to do to get through the day.
Yeah.
So take care of yourself first, and then all the rest will follow. It's easier said than done, for sure.
It truly is,
It
but
truly
but
is.
it's true. I've seen that in my own life as well. And you know, when we make the difference, or when we make the time for ourselves, it makes all the difference.
It makes a huge difference in how we can react and take care of those people around us who depend on us.
Absolutely. Well, I love you. I love you
so
so much.
I love you too.
And I'm so excited for you. And thank you
you.
so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
And I can't wait
my
to
pleasure.
see all the adventure that lies ahead.
Oh, thank you so much.
Love ya.
Love you too.